Do you want to try machine quilting? I'll show you a few tips here to do some simple, small project. So these are the things that you need to machine quilt. Some gloves. They've got these little rubberized fronts, so it's easy to hold onto your quilt and move it around. Some scissors. This I use sometimes. It has grippers on the other side, and you can put that over your quilt and help it to move around. And I'll show you that while I'm quilting. And then you need your actual project that you're going to quilt. So I have this one ready here. I've got my 3 layers together, so the top, the batting, and I have a flannel at bottom on this quilt. And you can see here, I actually have straight pins in this quilt. So this, I shouldn't even show you this because this absolutely is not what I would recommend. It's much better to use closed safety pins. This way you get stuck a lot. I do it because it's just much quicker and easier for me to do this, but I'm not recommending this method as fastening your quilt layers together, just to be clear. Your sewing machine, let's move over to the sewing machine. You have to set it up in a certain way. It's threaded as normal, but you have to change some settings. First of all, you have to change the setting that moves these little feeds. So mine is really easy on my machine. It's this big knob here. So I just click that and my feed dogs go down. If you don't see them going down on some machines, they actually adjust when you take your first stitch. So you don't have to worry about your stitch size because you're going to control that yourself on this kind of a machine. You know, this is not a long arm machine. This is a sit down sewing machine, but this one does have a larger throat than a lot of machines, and that makes it easier to get your quilt in and out of there. So let me show you the foot that you're going to use. This is the free motion foot that I'm going to use. If I hold it the right way up, you can see that there. And I'm just going to put that onto my sewing machine. Now, there is another way of doing some quilting on a little quilt that you've made. You could use a walking foot and just do some straight lines, and that would work as well. But I'm just showing you how to do a free motion quilting method today. This is a really quick and simple one. This is not doing a fancy pattern or anything like that. There's no more setting up on this machine to do this. All I have to do now is put my quilt under there. Now, all this side, let me get this right. You know, it's way too big, so you need to kind of roll this a little bit out of the way. And you can get some special clippy things to do that if you want to. I'm just going to slide it under there. I just tend to bundle mine. I don't do any fancy rolling or anything. And this is a baby-sized quilt, so that makes it a little bit easier. And I am going to slide it towards the middle. I'm going to sew this with white thread. I'm going to start this on the lightest part so that the start and finish won't show as much as it might do otherwise. You can probably hear my cats in the background. When I come to sew, they always want to come in here and they sit outside the door meowing. So, okay, so, let me move my hand out the way so that you can see what I did there. I turned my wheel to put the needle down into the quilt, and then when it comes back up, if I hold on to this, it will catch the thread from underneath and I can pull it through to the front. So now I have 2 threads there. So I'm just going to do a couple of quick stitches, put my needle down, put my foot down, do a couple of quick stitches, and then I'm going to cut those 2 ends of the thread off. And now I'm just going to put my gloves on. Now this takes a little bit of practice because there is no stitch control now and no movement control. You are doing all the moving and you were doing the length of the stitch at the same time. And as I say, it does take a little bit of practice. So, and mine isn't perfect, but the overall effect, it usually ends up looking okay. You also want to keep smoothing out this fabric, making sure nothing's underneath it. So press the foot pedal, and this isn't a race, so take your time. Try to make your stitches just as even as possible, and the best way to do that is if you can get your speed as even as possible, and then you'll just get into a rhythm. So here it goes, let's get started. So I'm just doing a meandering stitch here, which is just basically I'm just wandering all over the quilt. Making curves, smoothing it as I go. I do try to do all of one little area before I move on to the next little area. On this quilt, it doesn't really matter, but on some quilts, it's kind of hard to tell where you've already quilted. So my rule is to try not to cross over a line that I've already done. But, you know, if you want to do a pattern where you are crossing the line, that's fine. I suggest that you get a piece of paper and draw out the kind of pattern that you might do on the quilt before you start, and see, you know, what your plan is for this. So let me just go on and do a little bit more. And here I've come to a pin, so I'm just going to take that out. So I'm just going to stop here because I'm going to show you how to use this little tool. I don't use it usually on a pattern because on this pattern it's big and it's meandering and it's not got enough space in the center for what I'm doing. But if I was doing a precise pattern where I was doing little flowers or little shapes that I was trying to be in really good control of, what I would do was slide this under the sewing machine, and this gives you a nice handle to hold. It keeps everything nice and flat, and it helps you to move around the quilt underneath. So let me just demonstrate that quickly. So you can see that works quite well. Do you see my stitches are fairly even? I think they were a little bit smaller over here when I first started, but once the whole quilt's finished, nobody will really notice that. You do want to try not to make too small stitches though. There may be a point when you look on the back, you may have quilted a little fold in there. That happens sometimes. And if it's a small one, you can usually unpick a few stitches and work on it and get that out without having to, you know, redo the whole quilt. But if you've got those little tiny stitches, it's much harder to unpick that. And it is easy to make those tiny stitches when you're doing that. I just noticed I've used these gloves so much I've got a hole in the end of the finger. I thought that felt strange. Anyway, so I guess I'll need to buy myself some new gloves now. So I'm just going to go on. I'm going to continue in exactly the same way and just do the whole quilt. Opening that up so you can see a bit better, although it's not laying very straight. Back.